Do you know that most of your lifelong fears are probably totally groundless? Before we go down to examine how is that possible, let's discuss the basics, how fears arise. Let's confront what knowledge is with what faith really is. As we can easily define knowledge as a belief which is true in logical sense, while faith is something which is based on views without empirical evidence, we can easily set up a long list of examples of what knowledge is on the left or what faith is on the right. I think we can agree on both lists easily. Then let's try to find a place for convictions. Convictions which are kind of halfway between what knowledge is and what faith is. Can you judge what you think is good or bad on the third list? Another person who would fully agree with you as regards the first two lists right here can have different opinion. How convictions become either myths or knowledge, we need to verify them. It's quite easy in case of many examples from the list of what faith is. We know they are all myths, as you see on the list. Some of them are really Greek. How to make it science? How to scientifically verify our beliefs? Let's split up science into three broad fields. The first one is natural sciences. It's quite easy, it's really easy to verify through experience, so empirically, whether something is true or not. In case of social sciences, it is much harder. Why? Because we don't have a possibility to verify all this empirically. We simply have some historical experience and we can try to explain things. In case of humanities, it's even harder. Just a few examples. In case of natural sciences, when you see an apple on a tree, it will surely fall, wouldn't it? Yes, it will, and we will all agree on that. What about a plane? Will it fly? Yeah, it can fly, although it's really heavy. But we know planes fly through empirical examination. What about social sciences? How can we verify things like whether any government has its own money to give us or not? We can repeat multiple times what Ms. Thatcher said more than 40 years ago during a meeting of her Conservative Party, but people still believe governments have money to give out. Will birth rates increase if people are given money by the governments? Many people believe it works. How to convince them it does not work, which is a reality of almost every single place in the world. In other words, when does a belief become knowledge and when? A myth only. Let's look at a short comparison. A belief becomes knowledge, a conviction becomes knowledge when we can explain the causes of a phenomenon, and it will let us shift from the realm of belief to the realm of knowledge. When you know something, you no longer believe it because you already know. I think you will agree. When it becomes a myth, when we don't know the reason, when we are lacking rational explanation, when we think it is supernatural and we uncritically value whether it is good or bad. They're all consequences of our ignorance. Ignorance raises myths. Myths breed fear. And we fear of anything around. We as individuals, we as human beings, we as humanity as a whole. Where does fear come from? Fear, depending on whom you ask may arise from completely different things. When you ask a psychologist, he or she would say, okay, this is simply a somatic or physical reaction of a body, as typical as possible. Like you feel pain, you fear. On the ground of neurology, they would say it is something different. It is an activity the most typical for human brain itself. On the ground of cognitive science, it is our thoughts who breed or generate fear. Who is right? Probably there is a grain of truth everywhere here, but what is interesting, there is one thing they would all agree with. They would say that fear is a very strong emotion. What about facts and consciousness in regard of fear? Imagine you're inside your house. You hear someone knocking to your door. Do you fear? Will your heart start beating faster? Quite likely, depending on whether you expect a bailiff coming to collect some money or you expect your love coming to meet you. In the first case you fear, in the other you don't. What about a dog behind a fence, you see? Will you fear? It depends. It depends on your judgment of whether the dog can jump over the fence or not. If you think he cannot, you don't fear. What about a case when you judge, okay, the dog will not jump over the fence, and he does? In the beginning, you don't fear, then you start. So in general, we might say that this is about our brain and our convictions, whether we fear or not about the fact. Not about the fact. The fact of knocking wouldn't generate a fear unless you expect a bailiff. Okay, let's move to slightly broader perspective of the fear of the unknown. When there is something which is unknown, which is incomprehensible, and it is combined with the bleak visions of the future, when people around keep telling you something wrong, something bad will come, and you cannot assess it in the right way and verify it, then you start fearing. What's the beginning of the sequence? The beginning is new, unknown, incomprehensible. It means that knowledge is fundamental. Knowledge is the key. It's good to know because then you don't fear needlessly. What we used to fear needlessly in the near past. In the 19th century, we thought we cannot shorten the working week because we'll not produce as many goods as we want to. People worked 72 hours each week. No vacation, no holidays. Now we don't do that. In the late 19th century, people were afraid that New York and London would drown in horse dung because there were many more and more horses each year and not enough people to clean up the streets. We feared sewage systems. What you see now on the screen is a book cover, a book published in the year of 1900 in Poland, where sewage system was suspected to be an instrument of Judaism and chicanery aiming at destruction of Polish agriculture. Can you believe that? That sounds like a joke. In the 30s, in many countries, we believed that there is a strong need to keep race purity. Let's go to Germany of 1930s. Later on, we believed that there is a need of sterilization of mentally disabled people. It worked, among others, in Sweden. Now we know it's not good. Later on, in the 1980s, we believed that it's possible to transmit HIV through handshake. Now we know it's not possible. Before Mr. Laffer came to proclaim his easy and simple rule, we believed that there is a need to increase tax rate to collect more money for the government. Now we know it doesn't work that way. We feared many more things. We feared train travel. In this 19th century, scientists published in renowned journals like The Lancet papers proving, or convincing rather, that train travel generates constant strain on the muscles, brings fatigue to your eyes and brain, and we should rather not travel by train. It is dangerous and bad. These days we also believed that it is possible to revive the dead with electricity. As early as in 1903 in London, there was a famous experiment conducted where with electric shocks a body of a dead murderer was almost brought back to life. Almost makes a difference. Of course it was not, but people were convinced it is possible to revive the dead with electricity. Then Frankenstein was written and gained reputation. There are millions of people believing that the end of the world is coming sooner or later, rather soon. What you see on the screen is a long list of about 100 dates of doomsday people believed. None of them came to life until today. You may believe that there are only uneducated people who believe in doomsday coming soon, which is not really true. If we study the examples of public opinion polls, we would learn quickly that in the 20th century and 21st century, many people in rich countries where education is at high level believe in imminent doomsday. Examples, you can find examples on the screen. What is the most striking is that only a fraction of people living in rich countries do not believe in the end of the world approaching soon. What do you think about using atomic energy? Many people fear that. The fear started no later than with the publication of Time famous cover with Einstein, which was kind of fake. This guy was not involved in Manhattan Project. He did not work with the atomic bomb. Nowadays we have movies like Chernobyl that gain a lot of audience. At the same time, if you wish, you can visit the site of these days atomic power plant to take pictures and have food in their canteen. And we were told it will not be accessible for thousand years because of the pollution, which appeared not to be true. At the same time, we have scientific studies telling us that nuclear energy, when compared with other sources, is really relatively safe, and the most dangerous power plants are those powered by brown coal and then oil. You can see the data on the screen. And are we afraid of brown coal power plants? No, we don't. Why? Many say the Earth is overpopulated. The idea is really old. It started more or less with Confucius, but more present day is the idea developed by Thomas Malthus. We believe this 18th century guy who told us there must be overpopulation one day if we develop in terms of numbers of human beings on the earth as quickly as we do, as food production will not grow that quickly. Why don't we believe much younger scientists, Esther Boserup from Denmark, who said the necessity is the mother of invention. If we need something, we would invent something to meet our needs. The other chart presents her idea, her view on how food production and in general resources can follow the change of human population on the earth. We fear that resources will run out soon. Some 30 years ago, in a handbook for secondary school students, we learned that oil fields will run out until the first decade of 21st century. Did they? We learned more or less the same, different source, very serious, that Poland will run out of coal in 15 years, that world will run out of oil in 2013. Did it? Of course not. But these days, we were really afraid of all that. As early as in 1956, we started fearing that United States of America will run out of oil. The famous geophysicist Marion King Hubbard told that, saying that more or less in 1971 there will come a peak of oil production in the US, and then it will irreversibly start falling down. It seemed he was right these days. You can see it on the chart on the right. But then, more or less around 2005, the oil production in the US started growing again. But people still fear that the US will run out of oil. We commonly fear of tomorrow. We believe tomorrow will be worse. When we study the global perception of whether poverty increased or decreased over the past 20 years, we would learn that definitely the majority of world population asked during this examination would answer the poverty increased, while it is definitely not true. There are different measures, different ways of measuring the quality of life and poverty. On what you see on this chart on the right, there are just a few examples. In every single measure, the situation in the world gets better and better. And we still fear. Why? Why are we still afraid? There are multiple answers to that question. The first answers come from biology. We have so-called reptilian brain, so the one which is responsible for autonomous reactions. It is helpful. It helps us escape a dog that chases us. Then comes another kind of biological reaction, which is called Forer effect. We are reluctant to change our minds. We know that present-day smartphones are much more effective than the phones our grandfathers and grandmothers used to use half a century ago, and computers like ENIAC. But we don't draw a conclusion that things are getting better. Why? We are all afraid of punishments of hell. Of course, not all those who follow religions that tell us things like that. Some of these religions would tell us that an electric bulb is sinful. Why kerosene lamp is not? An electric bulb is. The education systems responsible for our problems as well. The Prussian school gave the foundation for all present-day educational systems in the world, and it aimed at creation of the citizen, a person who would respond to the government's needs and state needs of clerks working for the state. Everyone should think the same. This is what we are doing until today. Then come scientists. I'm sorry for that. Many predicted disaster coming from using trains. Now we look back with amusement. There are many telling us about coming disaster because the climate is changing. Then come politicians who use fear as a tool for manipulation of the society. Then come market competitors who would always claim they are right no matter what the truth is. There are guys saying that grown meat without killing an animal from stem cells is not really meat. It is fake meat, while it's not, but they would claim it is. And then come the media, blood cells. If they can threat us, they will do it definitely to gain more and more attention. Should we be afraid? What is in store for us in the near future? I think there are two answers to that question. First, lessons we can draw from the past. If you compare the world 100 years ago and now, you see huge difference to the better. I think we can say that in 100 years the world will be much easier to live and much better than it is today. Of course, there are traps like fallacies of inductive reasoning, which was in a beautiful way described by Nicholas Nassib Taleb. Because predicting the future is tricky. What he said is that in order to predict what will happen in the future, it is necessary to anticipate technological innovations which are fundamentally unpredictable. You don't know what you will invent in the future. Of course, there is also a so-called butterfly effect. To make it short, small change today may have radical, huge impact tomorrow. So you can't be sure, but you can really believe things are getting better and not worse. So to sum up, what to do? I think, first of all, educate in a better way to let people understand. If they understand, they don't need to believe and they will not fear that much. Second, let's draw from our past experiences and draw conclusions for the future. Let's look in a critical way to what all around bring us, because critical thinking is fundamental. Then let's remember that not scaring with the doomsday and coming apocalypse, but seeking solutions makes sense. Even if we expect something really bad coming, let's try to find the solutions, not fear another people around. Positive emotions are also very powerful. Remember that we are creating a reality. Do ask any motorbiker and he would say, look where you want to go. If you look in a place you wouldn't like to be, you will definitely hit that place. Don't do it. Do you think we can handle things now too? to find out, reach for a new book. It will help you fear less. Thank you for watching.